journey on the roof of the world, that is Tibet. And our main focus area would be obviously Kailash and Manasarovar. Kiran Bhai, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present a small presentation on Kailash Manasarovar and all my experiences that I've had for last 14 trips that I did. And welcome again to everyone, as I said, and I hope everybody can hear me out loud and clear. In case they're not able to do so, or if they have any problem, they can always unmute themselves and kind of make a kind of tell us about if there is any problem. Yeah. One second. Why this screen is not moving? So next slide. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So quickly, let me kind of tell a bit about myself. I'm Milind Bide. I've been kind of, as I kind of written everything, but I will just sound it out. First and foremost, I got the call of the Himalayas or the mountains in 1982, where I went for my first trek in Himachal Pradesh. And I did a Chandrakhani pass trek, and that's where I got hooked onto the mountains and to the Himalayas. And after that, of course, I kept going back for the basic course for a couple of expeditions and many more treks later. One of the kind of life-changing experience that I had was I was a part of the Kanchenjunga expedition back in 1988. I was one of the youngest member then. I was just 21. And thankfully I was a part of that team, and it was a life-changing experience for us, because then the way the expeditions operate now and the way expedition used to operate 33 years back was way different. And also with our travel trade, I got an opportunity to kind of visit many more countries, some iconic trips like Trans-Siberian Railway, Antarctica expedition cruise and stuff like that. About a little bit about Countryside. The Countryside Adventure Holidays was started in 1993. So we are almost 26-year-old now. And we started with our specialization as adventure. And over a period of time, we do a lot of leisure come offbeat destination trips. What I always say that we try to do destinations which are not familiar or a little different and offbeat, or we try to do different things in the destinations which are familiar to people. That's the kind of mix that we try to get in, and we try to give a lot of experiential kind of travel to our clients. To begin with, as far as our journey and virtual journey, as I said, for Tibet, I would like to quickly orient you on the map a bit. As you can see, this is Kathmandu, if you can follow my cursor. And from that's where we are going to start the journey, where we will arrive in Kathmandu. And from Kathmandu, we are going to fly down to Lhasa, which is on the right-hand side. And from Lhasa, which is the capital of Tibet, from there, we will start our journey. And I will just kind of quickly tell you to remember a couple of kind of highlights of the landmarks out here. You can see a lake in the north of Lhasa called Namso. So just keep that in mind. Then as we start traveling on the west, we come to the town of Shigatse via, of course, Yamruk Lake out here. And from Shigatse, we will be coming down to Everest Base Camp. And from Everest Base Camp, we will join back to the main highway leading towards Kailash, go to this town of Saga, and eventually to this Manasarovar, Lake of Manasarovar and Mount Kailash. So we are kind of commuting or traveling or completely from east to west. And as for the map, what you can see, you practically cover the entire distance of Nepal. Only thing is you're on the other side of the Himalayas, you're on the Tibetan plateau. And why it is called the roof of the world is because it's a plateau primarily, and the mountains are along the border of Nepal, Tibet and India. So it's primarily a plateau, and all the blue markings that you can see, these are all lakes out there. And average altitude of this plateau is 4,500 meters. So most of the journey that will happen is you will be kind of starting at Lhasa at around 3,600 meters, and then most of the journey will happen where the height is going to be more or less around 4,000 meters. Yeah. So here we will start the trip in Kathmandu. So this is the arrival in Kathmandu, where we are greeted and kind of met up with our representatives in Kathmandu, received at the airport, and then typically we will go to the hotel. And the way I usually conduct my trip is like we have a briefing on the first day, because many people have a lot of questions in terms of equipment, in terms of altitude, in terms of preparation, medicine, emergencies, and everything. So we address all those kind of queries on that day. And typically people would like here, because we are doing the trip via Lhasa, people would be staying back in Kathmandu for a period of at least 3 days. And because your visa and permit and all this process happens in Kathmandu. Yep. But yes, Kathmandu, as many people may have visited, is a beautiful kind of city. Beautiful in a very different terms. It has a lot of heritage sites, a lot of temples, a lot of stupas, and some heritage villages. Areas like Patan, Darbar Square are absolutely fascinating. This is, of course, Pashupatinath Temple. Kiran, I'm interrupting. There are 9 people, I think, waiting in the waiting room.
Already done that. Already admitted. Yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry on that.
Okay.
And guys, there are a couple more coming. Okay.
Yeah. No issue.
Just keep a watch on that.
Yeah.
Now, in Pashupatinath Temple, and these are the famous ghats of behind Pashupatinath Temple, like what we have got at Varanasi. It's something similar. The river out here is Bagmati River. And typically my practice is whenever I go, especially to the Kailash trip, I would visit I would visit Pashupatinath Temple before leaving for kind of Tibet or leaving for Kailash. Just ask for the blessings of this Lord Shiva at Pashupatinath, and then set off for our pilgrimage or our journey further. As you can see, if I usually visit in the morning when there are a lot of locals coming there and visiting the temple, there is a lot of bhajan kirtan happening. And somewhere I love to kind of spend some time in that temple complex where you get to see the locals coming there, the local life, local people, and it's very colorful. It's very colorful to be there and see there. It's a very different experience, and I always enjoy to be there in the morning hours. Some local shots again. And then, of course, we spend next 2-3 days where we will be doing sightseeing in and around Kathmandu.
Milind sir, your voice is not clear.
Oh,
sorry.
Is it? Now is it clear?
No.
Not yet. Hello? Hello? Kiran?
Hello?
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the famous Bhaktapur temple complex. Bhaktapur is around 30-35 kilometers from Kathmandu, so one can make a day visit to this. And Bhaktapur is a heritage village, so people do stay there in this heritage village. There are houses, there are temples, and especially if one can follow the cursor, one can see here. It's a very nice cafe in this complex up there. So I usually like to go there, spend some time, have my lunch, and then probably come back to the Kathmandu city. And again in city also there are, this is again one local shot in one of the small alleys of Bhaktapur. And then in Kathmandu again there are more sites. This is what is called as Nilkant Buddha or Sleeping Vishnu. And as you can see, he is sleeping on the coil of the Sheshnag, as you can see below. So many people definitely like to go and visit here, take darshan and then move on. And then there are further sites like Your Bodhanath Stupa, Swayambhunath is also there. So we spend these 2-3 days in Kathmandu doing the sightseeing, and I also recommend people that if they want to buy any gear, I think Kathmandu is the best place to buy the gear, because you get a lot of local stuff which is good in quality for the Kailash trip, especially, or one particular trek, and it's a hub. And if you want to buy any branded stuff, everything is available in Thamel, the kind of market area in Kathmandu. And it has a lot of cafes again, and a lot of restaurants and pubs and things like that. So it's a very different life that one can experience even in Thamel. This is a night shot of your Pashupatinath temple. So after spending these 3 to 4 days out in Kathmandu, we will be flying to the city of Lhasa. Now, this is a very famous monument. This is Potala Palace. It is a World Heritage Site. This is used to be the residence of His Holy Highness the Dalai Lama. And as you can see, there are more or less 3 colors. So you have a white structure at the base, then you have a red structure, and there are some yellow structures. So many people feel that it was built at the same time, but it's not the case. The yellow and the red structure was primarily there, and the white structure has been built little later in the time. So this is the famous Potala Palace of Dalai Lama. And people who have kind of read 7 Years in Tibet, or seen the movie 7 Years in Tibet, and if you have not seen, I would recommend you to see that book, see that movie, or read that book. But the only difference is in the movie and in the book, you have a different image of Lhasa. But now Lhasa has become like any other modern city of China. They have converted everything into a modern city. Like you have 4-lane roads on both the sides, the same type of building all across. You have hotels which are like from Shangri-Las to St. Regis to everything. So it's a very modern city now. This is another shot of Potala Palace from the Norbulinga Palace. We will see the Norbulinga Palace also. This is Norbulinga Palace. This is the summer palace of Dalai Lama. So during the summer, he used to come down from the Potala Palace and used to reside in this Norbulinga Palace. Then, of course, this is what prayer wheels that you will see everywhere in all the monasteries, all the temples. And this is Jokhang Temple, which is right in the center of Lhasa. And there is a little bit of old market, which is called as Barkot Market, around this temple. And this area is still little close to what Lhasa could be, say, around 50 years back or so. So it still has that little flavor. There are a lot of Tibetans, local Tibetans, who have their shops around this Jokhang Temple and that Barkot Square. Also, one can generally kind of go around in these markets to buy some local stuff, some artifacts and some trinkets and things like that those Tibetans are selling. So it's worth kind of spending some time in this Barkot area and Jokhang Temple. There's again a small Tibetan lady with the child. You can see how colorful the whole shop is around. And of course, we are in the land of Buddha, so monasteries is going to be a must. So at least we make it a point to visit one monastery, and I usually prefer to visit this monastery called Sera Monastery. And usually visit this Sera Monastery in the evening at around 3:34 types. And what happens is now all the monks that you can see, there are some monks, especially the one that you can see on the right. He is like with one leg up and kind of trying to clap. And there is one monk sitting in front of him. So the session that happens is they are debating, and that's the way they learn. So the monks which are sitting down, they are questioning these monks who are standing up. And whenever they make a point, and whenever they make a point across, they clap very hard. It's very interesting to see this session in action, where these monks are debating, and it's full of action. So it gives some little more flavor to the whole thing. I had pointed out on the map a lake in the north called Namso Lake. And Namso Lake is actually north of Lhasa. It is around 250 kilometers from Lhasa. One can make a day excursion because the roads are superb, and come back the same day. It becomes a long day, long journey. But this lake is at 5,000 meters, and the Lhasa city is at 3,600 meters. So I personally won't recommend people to go and stay there, because the sudden change in the altitude, people may get affected with altitude sickness and things like that. But visit to this lake, time permitting and everything, it is, I would say, a must. It is the biggest lake in Tibet, and also considered to be a very auspicious lake, and a site to visit in so many ways. Yeah. This is on the night shot of Potala Palace. As you can see, I typically recommend all my kind of guests to kind of go in the evening and take a shot of this Potala Palace, because it's all lit up very, and it's a main grandeur of Lhasa. So I think it's a must visit, and one should go and take the pictures. In fact, one of my very dear friend, who is also a photographer, he was extremely lucky. There was a thunderstorm and the hotel in which we were staying, we could get straight, without any hindrance, view of this Potala Palace, and he could get one picture with a lightning on the top. And it is there on the internet, and he is a professional photographer, so he keeps selling it. And I think it is one of the most picture in demand for him. So that's Potala. Now, after staying in Lhasa for this 3 days or maybe 4 days, it just helps us acclimatize well and with all the comforts, because Lhasa, as you can see, is at 3,650 meters. And later on the journey that we are going to make, we are slowly going to go up to 5,000 meters, and then finally towards Manasarovar, which is around 4,500, 700 meters. So I've kind of included this map in between just to kind of highlight and keep the orientation right. So from Lhasa, we will be going and visiting this Yamdruk Lake. From Yamdruk Lake, we'll go via Gyantse to this town of Shigatse, which is again kind of west of Lhasa. And from Shigatse, we are going to drive down to New Tingri. From New Tingri, we are going to go to Rumbuk, which is the base camp of Everest Base Camp. Then join back on the main road at Old Tingri, and then continue further west. We will not come down. We'll go further west towards Kailash. So that's the plan. And now I will kind of show you some pictures to illustrate what you're going to see en route and what you're going to experience en route. So this is the site of Yamdruk Lake. The way you see this lake is from a pass, which is quite high. And so you get a kind of bird's eye view to this lake. And the water is absolutely beautiful. It is like turquoise color, deep blue. And on one of the occasions when I was there, there was some fresh snowfall on these mountains up there. So it was absolutely heaven, absolutely heavenly. Yeah. So this is Yamdruk Lake. Yeah. So we kind of spent some time, and eventually we will be driving along this Yamdruk Lake. As you can see the road here, it is going along the Yamdruk Lake. So you continue along the Yamdruk Lake, and eventually passing after kind of, if we get time, we will visit Gyantse en route, and then finally come down to Shigatse. Now Shigatse is the second largest town in Tibet. And you can see there's a monastery out here which is called as Tashi Limpu Monastery. And you can see the entire complex of this monastery in this photo. So it's quite a big complex and a big monastery called Tashi Limpu Monastery. And I think it is one of the biggest monasteries in Tibet. So we would stay in Shigatse for a night. Typically the next day in the morning, we are going to kind of visit this monastery. Spend a couple of hours in this monastery. because it's quite a big complex, so it takes a little time. If we are lucky and if we can visit some Sunday market, we will do that also. We'll have our lunch and then proceed to New Tingri, as I had shown you on the map. Now, New Tingri is basically a small stopover that we are going to make in between before heading to Everest Base Camp. Yeah. Now, this is the shot that you need to look. We leave from New Tingri in the morning, say at around 4:30 or 5. You'll approach this pass called Pangla Pass. And trust me, I've never seen any site in the Himalayas where you can get such a spectacular view. And what you see from here is, at a glance, you can see 5 peaks which are above 8,000 meters. So right here is Everest, behind is Lhotse, and then you have, it's not in this frame, but you can see it later in the next frame. You have Choyo, and still on the extreme right is Shishapangma. So it doesn't fit into the entire frame, but from the pass one can kind of see practically 5 peaks which are above 8,000 meters, and Makalu is somewhere here behind, which we can probably see in the next slide. Yeah, it's here. Yeah. So this is Makalu, this is Lhotse, this is Everest, and here is Choyo. We can't see here. Probably in the next picture we can see that. Yeah, this is the block Choyo. And Shishapangma is further on the right, which doesn't fit into the plane because Shishapangma is not on the border of Nepal and Tibet. It is right inside Tibet. So it is quite inside. And whereas all these peaks that you can see are bordering between Nepal and Tibet. Yeah, and just see the blue skies, and it was absolutely a fabulous day. Absolutely a fabulous day. So we kind of spent some time, take pictures. It was freezing cold early morning hours because you are already at an altitude of almost 5,000 meters. So you spend a couple of minutes to take these pictures. And then we proceed to Everest Base Camp. Now, I keep telling people that if one wants to see Everest and one wants to appreciate Everest, then it can be appreciated only from the north side. The massive that is standing in front of you is Everest. I guess a couple of people have done a trek from the Nepal side to Everest Base Camp. In that trek, we can see only the pyramid which is on the top and which is the black rock. You can't see the massive. Whereas here you can see the entire massive standing in front of you. And Base Camp is a little ahead. It's out here. And this road is between a monastery called Rumbuk Monastery and the Everest Base Camp. Yeah, these carts are no more there. This is an old picture of mine, and they have been kind of done with these carts. Now they have electric buses which fly between Rumbuk and Everest Base Camp. So we can just drive up to the Everest Base Camp here. And the way you see this mountain is basically you're standing at 5,000 meters, and we are watching a summit or the mountain which is 8,848 meters. So practically you're looking up in the sky like 4 kilometers up in the sky. And as the crow flies, the distance between the mountain and you would be probably less than 15 to 20 kilometers. So it's not much of a difference in that scale. You can see here itself how it is towering in front of you. Yeah. So yes, so this is one kind of highlight of this trip. If you're doing the trip via Tibet or via Lhasa, and then we continue our journey further. And if you remember the map again, I'd said we will kind of join the main road going towards Kailash at Old Tingri. So this section of the road is a rough road, and it is still the rough road. It has not been a blacktop yet in so many ways. And from Old Tingri, we will continue our journey further to Saga, another main town en route Kailash, and where most of the route coming from Lhasa and most of the routes coming from Nepal border by road, they meet up at Saga. This is another beautiful lake that you see. which is called as Pigatso Lake. Pigatso. That was Nam Sho. And people who have gone to Ladakh in India, they would be knowing that it is Pangong Cho or Cho Murari. The Cho is basically a lake or a water body, and in Tibetan language. So that's the reason it is Pangong Cho, Cho Murari, Pigat Cho, Nam Cho. Except for Manasura, I don't think Manasura has. They might have a Tibetan name, of course, but I'm not aware of that. So this is the Pigatso Lake that we see en route, and then proceed further to the town of Saga. Now, this Saga has, these all places have developed over a period of time. Now there is quite a decent hotel in Saga. Earlier, there used to be only the guest houses and things like that, but now there is a decent hotel with attached kind of washrooms and things like that. So life is a little comfortable now. So we will be kind of halting for a night in Saga before we proceed further to our main destination, which is Kailash and Manasarovar. Now here you can see the road. The roads are absolutely fabulous. Driving on these Tibetan plateaus on these roads is pleasure. And so even if you are in a bus, you wouldn't really feel tired because the roads are really, really good. And some interesting features again, as you can see, there are some sand dunes out here, which are there, and there is a water body at the end. Very beautiful, very beautiful. I've been there now 14 times, and trust me, when I see these pictures, I feel like going there again. It's really beautiful. Yeah, probably pictures can't tell you as much, but it's really, really beautiful. So we kind of cross a couple of more villages before you first see the site of Mount Kailash. This is Mount Kailash and lakes of Manasarovar. Now, let me quickly tell you a bit about what we are going to do here, and then I will talk a little bit about Manasarovar itself and also about Kailash. So as you approach this lake, considering that lake is a circular lake, you approach it from the 3 o'clock position, and we are going to, we approach from somewhere here on this side, and we are going to kind of go and stay on this side at a place called Chugompa, and we are going to go clockwise. So you cover almost 2/3 of the lake driving to Chugompa, and 2/3 of the parikrama of Manasarovar is completed then. Yeah, and a bit about this lake. Now, as I talked about so many lakes like Namso Lake, Yandruk Lake, Pigatso Lake, these are all saltwater lakes. Whereas Manasarovar is definitely a sweetwater lake and not a saltwater lake. Yeah, so that's one major difference. Now, Manasarovar is auspicious in primarily Kailash and Manasarovar. Both are auspicious in primarily in 3 religions that we know. That is, of course, the Hindus. It is very auspicious for the Hindus because Manasarovar, the lake, is considered to be a reflection of Brahma's mind. And Mount Kailash is, of course, everybody would know that it is supposed to be abode of Lord Shiva. And it has many other significance also. Many people consider it as the center of the universe. It is also known as Meru Parvat. So it is considered to be very auspicious. For Jain religion also, both these things are auspicious. They consider that there are all Tirthankars went up to the heavens or to the Mount Kailash via this route. And there is a point or there is a place which they believe and is considered to be Ashtapat, which is on the south side of Mount Kailash, and from where you can get a fabulous, fabulous view of Mount Kailash, the south face of Mount Kailash that you can see. And that place is known as Ashtapat. And then, of course, for Buddhist, it is definitely very auspicious. Again, what is believed is like before giving birth to Lord Buddha, his mother came down from Mount Kailash and took a bath in the lakes of Manasarovar before giving birth to Lord Buddha. And there was a religion prior to Buddhism came into Tibet, and that is known as Bonpo. And this Bonpo religion is, for them also, it is considered to be auspicious. I don't know much about it, but there are some monasteries which are considered to be Bonpo monasteries and not exclusively the Buddhist monasteries the way we know. But it's a lot of mix, so you don't really feel any difference. The only difference I felt was when I was on a trip in 2004, and it was Buddha Purnima, and we were doing the parikrama of Mount Kailash, and we were going across in a clockwise manner. And I saw many local people coming anti-clockwise, so they were crossing us, and they were singing in typically high-pitched mountain voice. And I landed up asking my guide who was there with me, called Nima Tashi. I asked him that why these people are doing it the other way around. So he said they're Bonpos. I said that's fine, but why they're doing it anti-clockwise? And he had a very funny answer to give me, and quite convincing at the same time. He said they believe that Buddha is doing the parikrama clockwise, and in expectation of seeing him and meeting him, they do it anti-clockwise. So it was quite a nice, witty kind of a response. So I like that. So this is another view of Mount Kailash. This is again the south face of Mount Kailash. And exactly down here somewhere, we are going to be, we will see the kind of map again to orient ourselves. There's a town called Darchen, which is like at the base of Mount Kailash. This is another significant mountain, exactly opposite of Kailash on the other side of Manasarovar, and it is called as Gurula Mandapa. Again, a massive, almost 7,000 meters high, and all the water that you can melts through these glaciers of Gurula Mandapa, they kind of come to the lakes of Manasarovar. And I equally like Gurula Mandapa, the way it is positioned. Yeah. And the other important thing about this Manasarovar is in the circumference or around distance of around 50 to 100 kilometers of Manasarovar, there are primarily 5 main rivers, they say, originate from Manasarovar. Of course, one of them is Indus, or the Indu, which goes towards Ladakh and then finally enters Pakistan and then comes down to the Arabian Sea. Then there is your Satluj, which kind of travels all the way through Himachal. Then, of course, it is Brahmaputra, which kind of goes, kind of traverses all along from Manasarovar. It travels all the way almost to Lhasa, then takes a U-turn and enters Arunachal Pradesh, which is Brahmaputra, and finally flows down to the Assam, plains of Assam. And there is another river called Karnali, which kind of gets into Nepal. So these are the main primary rivers which kind of originate around this holy lake of Manasarovar. This is now, this is Rakshastal. So if you would have seen on the map, there were 2 dots. One was the Manasarovar, which was on the right, and this is Rakshastal, which is on the left. Now, Manasarovar is auspicious, and Rakshastal is considered to be inauspicious by the locals, especially. They, in the early times when I used to go there in 2003, 2004, the drivers and everyone used to be very reluctant to take us, or kind of take us near the lakes of, or the shores of Rakshastal, because they consider it to be very inauspicious. And but it is equally beautiful. There are a couple of islands, and in my opinion, it is a little bigger than Manasarovar. And finally, we come back to our night halt, night place, which is called as Chugompa. And the guest house, we can stay only in guest house out here. The guest house is very close to the banks of Manasarovar. So people can, usually they go out for a stroll in the evening, or whenever they feel like, they just go to the banks of Manasarovar. They take a stroll or walk around the Manasarovar. And as you can see, there's always a kind of a magic that is happening with the clouds and the shades, the sunlight, and everything, the dynamics that is played out. As you can see, there's a rainbow out here. Yeah. At the same time, there is sunlight out here. There is dark clouds. There are white clouds. There is blue sky in between. And of course, the blue waters of Manasarovar. So it is absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. You can see in this, there are two rainbows. So it's absolutely magical. It's absolutely magical many times. Yeah. One evening shot of Manasarovar again. One can keep on taking pictures, because every moment the light is changing, and you feel like taking another shot. Yeah. So after spending this one night at Manasarovar, on the next day, typically everybody wants to take a holy bath. So one can take a dip in the Manasarovar. Of course, now they don't allow a dip. You can take the water in a bucket and then kind of take a shower. You're not allowed to get inside the lakes of Manasarovar. So in a way it is good. People are not kind of polluting it and things like that. But usually people do that. They take a shower, and then what in my experience is like many people would kind of do their own things. A few people, they will kind of come together and do a small puja of their own. Many people would kind of go on the shore, be alone, and probably meditate, pray, kind of recite their stotras and things like that. So you have time that you can kind of generally be with yourself and do things of whatever you feel like. And after spending that time, we kind of start our journey further towards Darchin. Now this is Kailash. Darchin is down south here. And there's a distance of almost 45 to 50 kilometers between Chugompa and the base of Mount Kailash. So we will kind of start our journey towards Kailash now. Yeah, some shots in between. This is a small town of Darchin, as you can see. Now, the way this shot has been taken, these are the people who have come back from the parikrama of Mount Kailash. Whereas we are going to approach from the west, or from the 9 o'clock position, you can say, to this town. And Mount Kailash is up here on the right-hand side, right on the top. Yeah. So we usually kind of settle down here. We kind of get ourselves organized for the 3 days of parikrama of Mount Kailash, which we need to kind of get our bags again repacked, pick up clothing that we need for the 3 days of parikrama and things like that. Now here I will kind of again orient everybody on the map once again. Okay, so this is Darchin in the south. This is Mount Kailash, which is exactly north, as per the picture and otherwise, from Darchin. Yeah, and we will be doing the parikrama not the Bonpo style anti-clockwise, but we'll do it clockwise, the normal way. So this place is Tarboche, or kind of Yamadwar. What is called is also as Yamadwar. We typically get a drop here by a vehicle where we'll get off, and then from here either we will kind of walk up to Derafuk, or people who have taken horses, they can kind of ride up to Derafuk. And the first day is relatively easy. It's just 10 to 12 kilometers of walking. People usually will start from here at 10 and will reach Derafuk anytime at around between 3:30 to 5. Yeah. And from Derafuk, we will kind of go on this side further clockwise. And as you can see here, it is called as Dolmala Pass, which is almost 5,600 meters. And then we kind of come down to Sabji Tatuk, where we will be hitting the riverbed. And then, of course, it's a gentle, easy downhill walk to Zutulfuk, where we'll stay for the night again. And then eventually, with a very easy 2-3 hours walk, we get picked up here and we drive back to Darchin, and then we'll be coming on our return journey to Kathmandu or Lhasa, as what the schedule would be. Yeah. So now I will kind of give you some illustrative pictures which you can see. This is, as I said, this is Yamadwar. Now the belief is like if you are going to heavens, you have to cross and take permission from Yam, the god of death. So you need to kind of pray here. You kind of pass through his doors, and then start for your journey further to the heavens. So that is what is believed. So typically, what happens is here we kind of get our things organized in terms of the personal porters, your ponies and things like that, and then people set off for the walk. As you can see, this is quite an open valley, and it's along the river. Most of the trail is along the river, so no major climbing is involved here, except for little humps here and there, but no major uphill climb before we reach Derafuk. Now, from Derafuk is where you get a beautiful, beautiful view of Mount Kailash. And most of the pictures, most of the photographs that you would see are this face of this darshan of Mount Kailash, which is the north face of Mount Kailash. Yeah? And where this lady is sitting, the guest houses are just behind her, and she has gone a little closer to take a beautiful picture and darshan of Mount Kailash. And it is between these two mountains. There is a lot of mythology that is being talked about and told, which I'm not so much aware of, but people see a lot of things when they look at with a lot of emotions into this mountain. Many people would say that this is, if you can follow the cursor, this is like a Sheshnag, because it has a fang up there. Many people imagine this as a Ganpati. Many people also imagine they can see Lord Shiva with his kind of coil of hair, that is Jata, and things like that. So it's very different. Many people experience it very differently. Yeah. So we kind of spend one day here at Derafuk before setting out for a big day where we are going to cross the pass of Dolmala. This is the early morning when we set off for Dolmala. The early morning sun on Mount Kailash again, and our Derafuk, our camp was somewhere down here. We have climbed a little bit, yeah, and then you continue further. As you can see, there are many people during the season, which starts from June and ends up in September. So you will always have many yaks, many porters, many locals, many pilgrimage or yatris kind of doing the yatra. So the road is pretty broad and clear, and nothing to worry about the road. One has to only keep in mind that you're walking on altitude and you're going to cross altitudes. So one has to be cautious on altitude, but otherwise there's nothing much to worry about as far as the trail goes. And this one lady and the Tibetans, the Buddhist Tibetans, they believe doing the parikrama or prostration with full prostration. So they will do a complete namaskar at every step, and that's how they complete the parikrama. So usually they will complete one parikrama in 3 to 4 days time. They'd start early morning before the sunrise, and they will kind of end up just after the sunset. And that's how they do it for a period of almost 2 to 3 days. They complete the parikrama. But you can just, when you see them, you can just believe that what faith and belief and things can make a person go through the hardships that they go through. It's just unbelievable. Now we are going to soon be approaching the pass. You can see some pile of things out here. Okay, especially this pile of clothes. So there's a belief in Tibet that when you're going to kind of cross the pass of Dolmala, or when you're doing the parikrama of Mount Kailash, you need to leave behind something. So many people leave some scarf, some clothes, something they leave behind, and then they approach the pass of Dolmala. This is the pass of Dolmala. As you can see, it is full of prayer flags, and if you can observe little closely, all these prayer flags have some prayers written on each flag. And the belief in Tibetan, or even that's a belief even in Ladakh, it's the same philosophy that they have, is as the wind, along with the winds, the prayers will get spread into the air and it will go in every corner of the world. So that's the belief that they have, and that's the reason they will kind of put up these prayer flags everywhere. Yeah. So there's another small cute boy which was on the trail. As I said, there are many locals walking with their families, old, young, all sort of people. Okay, so from Dolmala, one can see this pond, which is known as Gauri Kund. There is a belief that before giving birth to Lord Ganesha, Parvati took a bath in this pond. And for the way I would say, this is a glacial pond. And but it has been there since 2003 when I made my first trip, and it is still there. So it is there, and it is believed that Gauri took a bath here before giving birth to Ganesha. And so we kind of go along this Gauri Kund and then descend further down, as I said, to the riverbed. As you can see now that there are a lot of people here walking back towards Sutulpuk, and the valley suddenly opens up. It's a very gentle valley downhill. Once you are here, you can consider that you are going to walk down to Sutulpuk, because everyone is relaxed, everyone is free of any tension of altitudes, crossing of pass, free of any concerns of bad weather, and there is a kind of a contentment that they have done the parikrama. So everyone is extremely relaxed, and they usually walk this distance to Sutulpuk. As you can see, the valley has suddenly again opened up. As I said, it's a beautiful landscape. It's just a beautiful landscape. It's unbelievable. So we kind of, you can see a small dot here. That's where somewhere is Sutulpuk. We stay in Sutulpuk for a night, and then we proceed to our end of the parikrama, where we'll be getting picked up by the vehicles. So as you can see, people are walking, there are people on the horse, and finally the happy faces that they have done it. And trust me, for people who have never been in the outdoors, and for people who have never ventured out on such altitudes, for them it is an adventure of their lifetime. Yeah. And because of the sentiments that they carry, it is also a trip or a yatra of their lifetime. Yeah. So happy faces. We say kind of bye-bye, and we thank our porters and Ponyman and everyone before ending the trip. So we finally come down to Darchen, pick up our baggage, and we drive. And usually I try to end up my trip on the banks of Manasarovar, because then it is a complete parikrama of Manasarovar and also a complete parikrama of Mount Kailash. So usually you kind of pray once again to the Kailash Parvat. You kind of pray to the Manasarovar, and it's the last kind of darshan that everybody will have of Kailash and Manasarovar before heading back. Now here I will kind of talk a bit about my experience. Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened. Yeah, here I will talk a bit about my experience, because I've been on this trip 14 times. Earlier it was 13 times, and I was lucky to go last year again. There were just two of my other friends, clients, who came with me, and they wanted to do the inner Kora and Nandi Kora, which I will explain you again. But I've been to 13 times. I went before that. Everybody who kind of tries to kind of talk to me or wants to go for the trip or wants to sign up with us for this trip, they always kind of have one question that they will ask me is, what do you think? Have you experienced anything up there? And what are your experiences? So my usually what I used to tell them is I've been doing this trip since 2003. And initially when I used to do this trip, I used to do it as any other professional work that we would do. And we always thought that we are dealing with altitudes, we are dealing with a parikrama, which is a trek, and it's a high altitude trek. So probably we have a little upper hand over the normal tour operating companies, and we have better knowledge, better experience to guide people through. And that's the reason we got into it and we started doing it. And it was purely a job that I used to do. Over a period of time, my interaction with the people, and because I've kind of, in this whole period of 13 trips that I did, I've walked with many people. Many people have been with me a couple of times, not once, maybe 3 times. Many people coming from kind of different parts of the world, coming from Kenya, coming from UK, coming from US, coming from New Zealand. So all kind of people, NRIs, cognitions, even different religions. So I have kind of taken once, of course, Christians, and of course I've walked or taken once, there was a gentleman who was follower of Islam. So I walked with a whole lot of different kind of people around. And my experience has been that people are drawn there, I don't know for what reason. Very difficult to explain what is the reason behind it. But that's the reason people keep coming back. And if you ask the people who have been there, they would like to say that if everything works out, given a chance, they don't mind going again. And trust me, it is one of the toughest trips to deal with for me as an organizer. Because there are a lot of challenges. I'm not getting into that right now. But trust me, when I just said before also, when I see these pictures and when I kind of run through this whole trip again, I feel like going back again. So after doing it for 14 times also, I also feel the same. I feel like going back. And what I've seen is something like this. There was one lady, she is from New Zealand, settled in New York. She had been to Tibet much earlier before I knew her. And she had done Everest Base Camp, Lhasa and all those things. Then later on, she came with me on a trip to Kailash. And unfortunately, that particular year, we had a bad weather spell. So we had to turn back from our first camp, that is Derafut. And the trip was not, the parikrama could not be completed. And it was, we had rains almost on every day on that particular trip. And then she repeated the trip and came with me again in 2011. And I was surprised that she wanted to do it again because she had already been to Tibet. She already came to Kailash with me, though she couldn't do the parikrama, but she had come with me. And now this is the 3rd visit that she's making to Tibet and that to Kailash. So on finishing the trip, I kind of asked her in specific that, Jane, tell me, why did you want to come again? So the response that she had is, I always felt that there's something unfinished or incomplete and unaccomplished. So I have to come back, and that's the reason I came back. The other gentleman that I told you was this gentleman who was kind of an Islam follower. I've seen him move, and in fact, this year, unfortunately, the trips are not happening. But if we could have done the trip, he was supposed to come. So it just moves you. I don't know what makes people move or what happens, but it just moves you. Yeah, and there are several incidents and several things that I can keep talking about, and we will probably run short of time. So at the end of the day, if you ask me if I want to go there, I would say yes, I want to go there. And I want to go there again. Yes, I want to go there again. And what is there? I would say I don't know. And but one thing is there, that once people go there, there is some draw, some pull, some vibrations, some vibes which are so dominating that it touches you in some form or the other in any case. That's what I would kind of say. So here we complete the normal trip. I will quickly kind of tell you about the inner Kora and the experience that I had in my last trip that I did. Nichiketa or Jedi, should we go back to the map once?
Yeah.
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 Let me see whether I can do that. One second. I will quickly go to the map.
Yeah, sure.
Because that will give you a right perspective. Okay, here we are. Okay, so quickly for everyone, so inner Kora, if you recollect, on the Parikrama day 1, we camp at the same place called Derafuk. And from Derafuk, we are going to cross a pass which is between Mount Kailash and the Dolmala Pass that everybody crosses. There is a pass called Khande Saglum Pass. If you can see here, Saglam Pass, Saglam La. Not Dolma La, Saglam La, Khardung La for people who have been to Ladakh. So this La in Tibetan language is known as a pass. That's the reason all these passes end up with La, L-A. Yeah. So there are many passes. So this is like Dolma La, if people have kind of commuted on Srinagar Leh Road, then it is Zozila. From Manali, if you go, there is Baralacha La. So this La is a pass. So we crossed this pass called Khandum Saglam Pass and came down and joined the main trail and came back to Chitulfuk. So this is said to be the inner Kora, north face of Mount Kailash.
You got it,
You
right?
can see,
Perfect.
you can see an orange spot here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Can I interject? We visited this north face
Mm-hmm.
all by car.
All by car.
By car. We passed all the, yes, we passed all the villages, stayed in Darjeeling, and we saw the north face. So it was a journey of a lifetime. But
Yes,
by car,
it is.
via China, from China. So
Yes.
I want to talk to you about that also. I have
We will talk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
हॅलो भिडे साहेब.
हाँ बोला ना.
हॅलो.
बोला.
हा मी दंडे बोलतो नाशिकहून.
This is, by the way, this is Derafuk Monastery. Let me just point out to them. This is Derafuk Monastery.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
हा मी बोलू.
एक सेकंड जरा ये घूम जाऊं दे.
हॅलो.
माहिती पडते आहे की बदला लागते
Kiran, can you put everybody else on mute?
Yeah, I'll do that. Just
for a minute.
Done. This video is done now. We can talk. Just
Yeah, you kind of pull it off. Yeah. Okay.
हॅलो.
Yeah.
हा भिडे साहेब मी बोलू.
हाँ बोला ना सुहास.
हा मी आधी 94, 98 आणि 2004-05 ला मी जाऊन आलोय. 3 वेळा मी इंडियन बॉर्डर मधून गेलो आणि 2005 ला तुम्ही जसे ल्हासावरनं गेले तसं गेलो. तर आता परत जायची इच्छा आहे, तर तुम्ही ऑर्गनाइज करता का हे सगळं?
हो, वी डू दॅट, बट वी डू इट आम्ही करतो आणि आम्ही नेपाळ यूज करतो.
हो, नेपाळ.
सो इट इज आयदर डन वाय लासा और वी डू इट वाया द रोड. आता पहिली जी बॉर्डर होती केरुंगची, आता केरुंग बॉर्डर ओपन आहे, कोदारी क्लोज्ड आहे सध्या.
म्हणजे नलायमवरनं जात नाही तुम्ही?
नलायमवरून आता सध्या तरी रोड चालू आहे.
अच्छा, म्हणजे मला लासावरून जायची इच्छा आहे.
या
तर तुमचा नंबर, कॉन्टॅक्ट नंबर देऊ शकाल का मला?
हाँ, I will kind of post it later on.
Oh.
I just put it on the chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
आणि नाहीतर मी एक काम करीन मिलिंद सर, मी सगळ्यांना एक ईमेल पण पाठवून ठेवीन. अँड आता आपण एक चॅट विंडोवर ईमेल आयडी वगैरे टाकून ठेवूया.
चालेल.
दे कॅन कनेक्ट विथ अस.
चालेल.
Hi, this is Punita from Los Angeles. I have a question.
Yeah, tell me,
What
Punita.
age people are traveling and how good they help to be in the health?
Sorry, I did not get your last part.
Okay, uski health कैसी होनी चाहिए in order to go there?
Yeah, now see, as far as if you are doing and planning to do the parikrama especially, okay, then definitely a little above average fitness is necessary. That's how I would say, because we are primarily going to deal with the altitudes more than anything. Yeah. And the altitudes are, because if you see the pass, Dolmala Pass, it is 1,600 meters. And so definitely it is a serious height that one would be crossing. And it doesn't matter even if you're going to take a pony, still you're going to be at that height. And so one needs to be, kind of good physical condition. Yeah.
And what age people are traveling?
What?
Age.
What is their age? Umar kaun si?
Yeah, age. See, I've taken the kind of the eldest person that I've taken on this trip. That lady was 72 then. Okay, and she was, her son was also there, and he comes from Los Angeles, not Los Angeles, from California. Yeah, Arun Mahajan. His name is Arun Mahajan, and so her son was also there, and was very pre-decided that she will not come on the parikrama. Okay, and initially she was also okay, but she was keeping very good health, and she was absolutely fine. No issues with acclimatization or anything. So I kind of told her son that we should take her to Derafuk, the first camp, because she can come by horse, and let her go back from Derafuk because she will get a beautiful view from the north side. So she came to Derafuk, and then she went back. And though she wanted to cross the pass and come with us, but I refused, and she was upset with me for that.
And what month it should be?
I would always prefer any time till second, third week of July. Okay, and later on September has always been good for me. Any time in September.
So you are saying July to September?
No. Anytime from say June till third week of July, those kind of 5 to 6 weeks, and later on in September. I avoid August because August is always kind of a little tricky. If you get heavy rains or something, then it's always a trouble.
Milind,
Give us answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Jain bhai.
Hello.
Sorry. I will kind of go. I can see the hands, so I will go one by one.
Yeah. Hello.
So Jain bhai, you can ask me. Jain Sampath.
Yeah. I would like to know at what age, at somebody about 70, is it good to travel to Mansarovar?
See, very difficult question to answer. First and foremost, as I just told, there was a lady of age of 72 that I took her to Manasarovar. Yeah. And one second, I will can I request people who are not talking to go on mute? There's a lot of disturbance otherwise. So yeah, Jain bhai, just to answer your question, so people who are in good condition, good health can definitely go there. But as far as altitude is concerned, everybody has to hold their fingers crossed. It can affect to the youngest and the fittest, and it may not affect to the elderly person who is in his 60s or late 60s. Yeah. But typically for Indian passport holders, there's an age limit of 70 that has been put up by the authorities out there. So if you are above age of 70, then they have kind of agreed to do a lot of things with a lot of conditions. But otherwise, that becomes a little constraint. But if you have a foreign passport, then there's no age limit as such. Does that answer your question, Samud bhai? He's on mute. Yeah.
Surabhi ma'am.
Surabhi, yeah, tell me.
Yes.
Tell me,
Hello.
yeah, tell me.
Bye. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, and it was beautiful, and the narration was fantastic. I had 2 experiences going to and witnessing Mahan Kailash, you know, in Manasarovar. First time I went with my friend and a group of people in 2006. And to answer the last person's question, it depends on the weather. We went up to 1.5 days, and then it started snowing. We camped there on the Dulaf, I forget the name.
Gerafuk.
Yes, we camped there. Next morning, we couldn't sleep all night. We tented, you know, and next day snow was up to our calf muscles. So we had to take a pick whether we should continue or not. And few people decided we want to go back, and 4 people went, 4 or 5. They had a really hard time, but they did it. And out of that, one person, our leader, has been there for 15 times. So he was but he had help also. So that was my first experience, but I enjoyed it thoroughly, the parikrama and all. And we went through all the towns, all the Nyalam and, you know, Darjeeling and all those. And then second time, because my husband couldn't join me for walk or parikrama, we went by car. I just told you. So the people who cannot go but still want to see Kailash personally, you can now go by car. China has built beautiful roads all the way up to Darjeeling, and we stayed overnight in Darjeeling. And I have a movie of the whole thing, that my road trip. And it is expensive. It is not cheap or inexpensive. And you go in 4-wheel drive with the guide, and they take you all the way to North Face. And it was amazing to see North Face also. And also Kailash, it was a beautiful, clean day, and we could see Kailash. And so at that time also we visited all this Manasarovar, Rakshas Talab. Then what I want to stress also is, while coming back, the way I saw Tibet, the mountains with so many variety of beautiful colors, I've never seen. And the whole journey is so beautiful. So it's not like if you can't walk, if you can't take that whole ride and go up for parikrama, you can take this route. And it will take time, and you have to be patient, but you can do it. One can do it. We were 3 couples in the caravan, and it was a life of my experience, and I feel good that my husband could also see the beautiful Manasarovar. And you know, you take your time when you are in the car. But thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, Milind sir, there is one Bhupendra Bhai is there. He has some questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, Bhupendra Bhai, you can go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, yes, Milind Bhai, it's excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, few questions. Now, so after Mount Kailash, okay, do you come back to Lhasa or you go to Kathmandu, or there are 2 different options?
See, definitely the option is there of kind of driving all the way to Lhasa, if you want to avoid the tough road journey which is there on the way back to Kathmandu, because the roads are absolutely fine on the Tibet side, but the moment you cross into the Nepal side, the road currently that is there is absolutely terrible. So given a choice, I would say spend 1 extra day and you drive back to Lhasa instead of coming down to Kathmandu. Or alternatively, one can take a chopper from the border to Kathmandu city. So that also saves a lot of hassle. Yeah, and you can save a day or 2 also in that. Yeah.
Okay, what is the best time to see the flowers? I've seen some pictures of the flowers, like flower blooms on the mountain. Right. So is it in June or is it in September?
No,
or?
it will be necessarily July, August, and September, because that's just summer and that would be the most ideal time to kind of visit. But frankly, I have not seen many flowers in Tibet proper. They might be on the Nepal side, and yet that used to be the case when we used to do the journey from Kodari border, the earlier border. But that border is no more there. It's closed from the time of earthquake. So currently, I don't think you will see any flowers on the route from Lhasa and back. And you can see only the yellow flowers, which are like very often, but nothing more than that. Because it's at altitude.
Right. And yeah, generally September is less crowded as schools opens, or is
yes,
crowded?
September I always prefer because much greener and much better.
The last question. So for the US passport holder, do you need a visa for China, or if you have China visa, you can use that?
No, if you already have a mainland China visa, then there are two things that are involved. One is the permit that you need, and anybody needs to go to Tibet, and the second thing is the Chinese visa. So if you have a Chinese visa, the permit process changes, but otherwise everybody is asked to kind of get the permit first, and then you get the visa.
Visa, okay, got it.
Yeah. Can I move to Prakash ji? I will come back to you, sir. Uma Kapsi, I will come back to you. Yeah. Prakash ji?
Thank you very much. It was a nice presentation.
Thank you, sir. I can't hear you, Prakash ji.
Thank you very much. A nice presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Anybody else with questions? Yeah, tell me, sir. Dhiren bhai. You have to unmute yourself, sir. You have to unmute yourself. Dhiren bhai, you have to unmute.
JD, you can do that for him.
Milind, I have another question. So I was wondering, okay, why?
One second. I will come back to you.
Yeah, Milind.
Yeah, tell me, sir.
You disqualified me on the age grounds. I'm 75. But out of academic interest, I would like to still see the photos of the guest houses that are there.
First, before outright kind of saying no to you, there are two questions. If you have a British or American passport, you can come.
Oh, I'm Hindustani woman.
Hindustani, okay. So that is the disadvantage that we carry. But there is a
disadvantage.
No, there is a process, but let us kind of see when it works. Yeah. And as far as accommodation is concerned on this Lhasa route, the accommodation has improved dramatically over a period of time. The three places where everybody has to compromise, whatever happens, is when you are staying at the banks of Manasarovar, because still there are those old guest houses, and when you go out on the Parikrama, where you're staying in Derafuk and when you're staying in Zutulfuk. Out of that, again, Zutulfuk has come out with a very nice guest house. Derafuk is the same guest house. They are also coming up with a better guest house now. But you will not have any issue with the room and the bedding. Okay, they are very hygienic and very nice. Okay, the issue is with the toilets. But we try to resolve it.
Modi did not act there.
What? Sorry, I did not.
Narendra Modi did not act there.
No, they don't have Swachh Bharat Abhiyan.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, Milind sir. We have only 2 minutes, and I guess yeah. So I guess next question is Miss Himani. Himani ma'am is there.
Okay. Tell me, Himani ji.
Yeah. So this is actually your husband. You know.
Okay. Tell me.
Yeah, but amazing presentation, Milind sir. You know, this is captivating. I'm thankful to Kiran uncle for inviting me over here. You know, I would have missed this. Please do send me a recording of this. I would love to do that as well, and I'll send my email to you. Right?
Sure.
You know, do you prep before the journey? So you know, do you have a because there are so many. This is like once in a lifetime opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And there are sentiments are running high. The emotions are running high.
Yeah.
Of course, the fitness is there and everything is there, right? So prep before the do you prep before the journey so that you know how is the next leg going to go, and what are the other things that you're going to
we kind of have a lot of interaction with everyone. We obviously tell people what they need to do prior to the trip. Even in Kathmandu, when we are there, we kind of run through the whole thing once again. And on a daily basis, there is a kind of instructions and kind of a briefing that is done for the next day that is going to come. Typically, I don't take very large groups, like not 80s or 100 or something like that. The maximum group that I would take is around 30, 32, because that makes it viable. And then we have enough to kind of leaders with us to keep a personal kind of attention to people, because we keep checking your oxygen with oximeters. We keep checking your oxygen saturation levels and things like that. Yep. So we can kind of, I will explain a little bit more in detail later, if that is okay.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Tushar, Mr. Tushar, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
You can call. Telephone and number, huh?
Okay.
Tushar,
Yeah, it was a good presentation. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
And just one question was like, how many days is this tour for, basically?
Around 14 to 15 days.
Okay. And another thing is, now this COVID thing is happening.
Yeah.
Now, what are the chances which you will be? I don't think so. You're taking the tour this year, right?
No way.
And what are the chances you're taking the tour next year then?
No, it will all depend, because right now none of the travel plans are actually anybody can predict, because it all depends on the international borders, how they open up, how the flights open up and things like that. So we hope that it will open soon.
Okay.
And if it opens soon, then of course things will start moving once again.
So it will be happening next year only.
Yes, this year is definitely, I would say, it won't happen.
And what is the tour cost range, basically?
See, one has to budget, like via Lhasa if the trip is happening, and if with the Kathmandu Lhasa flight insurance and other things keeping in mind, one should budget anywhere around kind of 3 lakhs rupees, Indian rupees, which would take care of insurance. They will take care of the Lhasa flight, and maybe the Bombay Kathmandu kind of an airfare.
Okay. Okay.
So around 3 lakhs.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Next, Kiran.
I can see Himani. Okay, she's done. Now no one is there. Yeah, correct. So what
Okay, Kiran, I just wanted to mention. Hello. So I just wanted to mention to everybody, thank you for joining us, and this is really great to have you all here. And I think અમે તમને virtually કૈલાશની જર્ની કરાવી દીધી છે, અને તમે બધાએ ઘણું એન્જોય કર્યું છે. I will coordinate with Mrs. Sampath again, અને હું અમારો email ID અને contact details મેં chat box માં બધાને already આપ્યા છે. But in case તમને હજુ કોઈ information જોઈતી હોય, વધારે આના બારેમાં અગર inquiry હશે કે otherwise also if you want to have a chat with our director, then we are always open to, and I have shared the contact details. I will also share the trip details with Sampath sir. So, you all guys can have a look at it, and we'll see you soon then. Yeah?
So, Nichiketa, Surabhi ma'am has to say something. And
I just want to thank everyone who participated in this presentation, particularly Milind Bhai and Kiran Bhai. I'm based in Los Angeles, California. I would love to see more of your journeys, Milind Bhai. Maybe you can share with us, but how do I get info?
I will send my details across, so I think Kiran Bhai can circulate around with the group. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Bhupen sir, you want to say something?
Okay, yes. So one more question. So what about the food? Is vegetarian food available?
It's all vegetarian, 100% vegetarian food. Because we take our kitchen team from Nepal.
Oh, okay. So you have your own kitchen team. Okay, great. Great. So again, looking forward to this trip. Hopefully September next year. And I'll follow up with Kiran. Kiran and I live in the same neighborhood. I was looking at the Siberia tour also, like.
Yes,
But
yes.
I think that
I
got
was.
cancelled. Right.
Yeah.
So Bhupendra, we can definitely arrange one Trans-Siberian webinar also, something like that.
Yeah.
I did it last August.
The part of the Trans-Siberia I already done on my own. I done it from Moscow to Kazan. That trip I done by train, but on my own. But I think this goes all the way to Siberia and then Mongolia, right?
Okay.
So maybe, but I think I'm more excited about the Kailash than the Trans-Siberia tour. So I would like to explore seriously September next year. Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Milind, I have one question.
Yeah, tell me.
I just wanted to know, do you have mobile connectivity throughout the trip?
Yeah, it is throughout the trip.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Thank you.
There might be one or two black spots in between, like blind spots, but otherwise it's throughout. Yeah, it's almost throughout.
Oh, Milind bhai,
Even on the parikrama.
Milind bhai, I'm in, you don't see me on video, but I'm unmuted. I'm Madhukar and Nilima Patel from Los Angeles. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you well.
Okay, all right. You don't see the video because my video is not working. But we took Mansarovar Kailash Parikrama last year with Karnali excursions from Kathmandu.
Okay.
And we had a great experience, and you actually physically took us back there today.
Do you know this word parikrama?
And then fortunately we did Charan Sparsh also. We had that opportunity to go close to Kailash.
Parikrama is like a
that was the highlight.
circular
But your presentation was
pilgrimage of
excellent. Your pictures
sacred
were
places.
great, and it was good to spiritually go there today.
Yeah. It's
Thank you.
always going to be the case that you will feel like going again and again, as I said.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much, and Hari Om.
Pleasure. Yeah, Suhas. You have to unmute yourself, Suhas. Unmute.
हा
Yeah.
येतोय आवाज?
हो येतोय.
माझा ईमेल आणि फोन दिलाय मी आता चॅटिंग मध्ये.
ओके.
तर मला तुमचं डिटेल्स ऑफिसचे पाठवा, मी तुमच्याशी कॉन्टॅक्ट करतो.
डेफिनेटली सर.
मुंबईला असता ना तुम्ही?
हो, बॉम्बे.
ओके थँक्यू.
सुहास सर, मी ऑलरेडी कॉन्टॅक्ट चॅटलिस्ट मध्ये टाकलेले आहे, चॅट बॉक्स मध्ये. आमचा तिघांचाही नंबर आहे आणि कॉन्टॅक्ट ईमेल आयडी पण आहे. सो यू कॅन राईट टू अस अँड वी विल शुअरली कनेक्ट विथ यू.
ठीक आहे थँक्यू. ओके.
So Kiran bhai, I think Kiran bhai, I think all the questions are answered. So thank you very much. I can't see you again.
But Milind, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I want to thank Nichiketa for initiating this. You Kiran for supporting it.
Yeah.
And a lot of us here on this group that you see were also considering Siberian train with you guys.
Yes. It is a must journey sometime.
And it got cancelled out.
Yeah.
And so maybe we can do it virtually.
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely. Yeah.
But listen, you guys did a great job. You stayed in it for us. We also appreciate that here in California. And everyone who attended, thanks a lot. And we will have a couple more of these. We'll work with Nichiketa, but if you have any particular destination you like to cover, we can ask these guys and see we can do it. We are all homebound anyway for now.
Kiran bhai, think of Ladakh.
Ladakh, yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah, because it is. I've been to Tibet. I've been to Ladakh, and I think the landscape of Ladakh is more dramatic.
Okay, so we can do that. But can you do similar thing for this Moscow to Mongolia journey, Siberian train?
Yes.
Yeah, we can do it. That's not a problem.
That would be of lot of interest to a lot of us.
Definitely, we will do it then. Yeah.
And there are about 10 to 12 people who could not attend. I have a YouTube video from you, Nichiketa. I'll share with the whole group.
We will share the recording with them.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yes. And Mrs. Sampath, I wanted to mention even Mongolia is something that people would be interested, and it's all about completely an offbeat destination. So I think we can arrange something for that also.
Let's plan with that when you guys are ready, or maybe in 2 weeks.
Yep.
No problem.
Sure.
All right.
Thank you, Kiran.
Surbi ma'am wants to. Yeah, she has raised her hand. She needs to unmute. Yeah.
Milind bhai, somebody mentioned Trans-Siberian Railway.
That's true.
So I have done that. We have done that. It is very, very fulfilling. We did from Vladivostok to Moscow, Trans-Siberian Railway. Beautiful, beautiful. In between, we went to Mongolia. So if you are making that trip, please let us know. I would love to go again. And but I would recommend that to anybody, because that's a life of an experience of a life, lifetime. But you have done so much. I really admire, and we really enjoyed it. You took us back to Kailas again, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shivai. That's how we say. That's how we greet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Uma Kapsi, I think he wants to say something.
No, I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.